This will be a brief introduction to the most important things you need to know if you want to print maps. And it's really going to be an introduction. It's if you work with print in your day-to-day job, this is, sorry, not the talk for you. The cartography that I do for work is entirely digital, so I don't know much about printing on paper. And every year I kept hoping someone would make a NACIS presentation about it. This year I got tired of waiting and decided to do it myself. But luckily for me, my colleague at Amazon, Bruce Daniel, is a cartography veteran with decades of experience working with printers. So I asked him all the rookie questions, and he supplied the expert answers. The content in this presentation is all thanks to Bruce, and any mistakes are mine.
Hi, Bruce Daniel here. When Kate first spoke with me about giving a presentation at NACIS on the printing of maps, I thought about why I enjoy paper maps so much. And two themes sort of occurred to me. First of all, as a user, I really enjoy the physical use of a paper map. It can be folded up and put in your pocket really easily. It's very lightweight. It doesn't require Wi-Fi or downloading. It can be annotated. You can hand it to someone else without worrying about them dropping it or not getting it back entirely. And most of all, what I enjoy is that the entire map experience is held on one piece of paper. So a well-designed map, be it through insets or the reverse side of the map versus the other side of the map, the entire context of your map experience is on that one piece of paper. Obviously, there are limitations. There's no panning and zooming. It's not as changeable, etc. And then I thought about the use of paper maps from a cartographer's point of view. What is it that excites me about printing a map if I'm a cartographer? And to me, it's an extension of my craft, being able to take something from pixel to paper. There's a lot of learning that happens along the way. The devil is in the detail, as so much of cartographic work is. And some of it is being able to transform your vision into a tangible piece of property. It's kind of exciting. If you ever have the opportunity to see 50,000 of your maps being run on a web press, it's pretty entertaining. So I'll let Kate start you off on this journey, and look forward to seeing you in person one day.
Thank you, Bruce. Bruce is watching the live stream right now, so everyone turn around and look at the camera and give him a wave. So we're all cartographers here, and so I'm going to make a few assumptions about where we're going to start in this process. You have already designed the map, and that your map is in Illustrator. And now you want to print it onto paper better than on your home printer. So the rest of this presentation will cover working with the commercial printer. And also I'm assuming that you understand at least the basics of color theory and that there's a difference between RGB and CMYK color. I wanted a ballpark idea of what a project might look like. This is a very rough sort of idea of what a short run on an ink press might set you back, both in time and money. Of course, each project is different. It varies widely, but this is a general sense. And Bruce wanted me to emphasize you can hope for two of these, good, cheap, and fast. For example, you could pay more money to speed up the process. There's always trade-offs. Let's dig into this timeline just a bit more. You can see on one side what you do and the other side what the printer is doing. So about 3 weeks total. There are 2 days of preparing your file for printing. This is after the map is completely designed and you consider it finished. This is extra work to get it ready to go to print, which I'll talk about a little bit later. Then the printer creates the proof, 3 to 4 days. You take a couple days to look at it. Sometimes you need a second proof, so a few more days on both sides for that. And then it takes a few days to schedule press time and order paper, if needed. And then there's press day. And then after press day, it can take up to a week for things like ink drying and finishing, things like cutting, folding, and boxing. There are 3 main kinds of commercial printers. Large format, which is pretty self-explanatory, extra large pieces, a digital press, and 4-color offset printing. Within the offset printing, there are 3 subcategories. Internet printers, this is stuff like Vistaprint, and these can be really good for a single print run, but in between two print runs, they can be inconsistent. Sheet-fed printing is where the printer grabs from a stack of sheets of paper. It's a little bit slower, but it has tighter registration, which is how well the colors are lined up. And then web press, that's where paper comes off a roll through the printer and is cut afterward. This is the fastest option, and it's cheaper, but the registration is not always quite as tight. How many maps do you want to print? This will influence the method that you choose. Obviously, large format is usually a one-off kind of project. Digital presses are good for small runs. Within offset printing, internet printers can do small runs. It might be a good choice for that. Sheet-fed printers are in the middle, and web press is for your largest runs. To give you a general idea, an average run, maybe on a sheet-fed offset printer, would be 5,000 to 10,000 pieces, whereas a web press average run might be something like 400,000. As far as color, we're starting with CMYK in all cases. Large format and offset use ink, whereas digital press tends to use toner, but not always. Then in all cases, you can add spot colors. Pantone is one example of spot color. So that's another color of ink in addition to cyan, magenta, yellow, and black, which you can request from the printer. Colors you might want to use for spot colors tend to be things like orange or maybe another blue. In addition, four-color offset printing also allows things like spot textures, either varnish or matte. So that's where there's texture in only certain parts, not the whole map. Finally, there's some differences in the dot or fill pattern here. There's two types, stochastic and rosette. Stochastic means random, and rosette is sort of a regular repeating pattern, sort of looks like a rosette. And there's examples of both of those in the background of this slide. On the left is stochastic, on the right is the rosette. Digital press tends to use stochastic, but it goes back and forth, and offset generally uses rosette printing. So to print, you need to have your file in CMYK. It does have a smaller color gamut, though, than RGB. And so you need to decide when to make that transition. You can design in either. Bruce prefers to design in RGB with a fuller color gamut, because these days when you make a map, you're not just making it for one certain project where you're going to print it a certain way. You might also want to make a digital version, and so forth. The printer can also do the RGB to CMYK conversion for you, so you can ask them about that. Here's a few things you can do as you're thinking about looking at your screen and thinking about how it might look in CMYK. You can step back and squint. This helps you see the overall balance without getting distracted by the details. Look on your screen for where color pops, because it's not going to do that on paper. Give special consideration to oranges, purples, and fluorescents. It's hard to get a bright orange in print, and purples are tricky because purple and brown are hard to distinguish on paper. And fluorescents are out of gamut entirely unless you have a spot color. And another thing you can do is turn your brightness down and adjust your white balance on the warm side so it looks more like it might on a piece of paper. So now I'm going to share a process that Bruce uses for his own work based on his years of experience. The full checklist is online. Also, I have hard copies here. So I'll walk you through the high-level version of it. First, make sure that your Illustrator version is the same as the printer's or compatible. Turn on high-resolution raster effects in your Illustrator file. Then you go through the conversion to CMYK. Then flatten most layers, the background layers, everything that's not a solid, sharp object. Can then convert that to a high-resolution raster image. This will make sure that all your effects work as you expect them to, and will simplify the file. It might take it from something like 50 layers to something like 13. Then convert fonts to outlines. Keep them vector, of course. Make sure all your blacks are set to print at 100% black ink rather than equal parts cyan, magenta, and yellow, which sometimes Illustrator can do. You can also add 30 to 40% cyan or magenta to the black if for a really rich, dark color, either warmer or cooler, depending. Make sure that your blacks are set to overprint, 100% overprint, which means that the black ink is printed on top of what's below it and that there isn't a knockout below This helps to avoid little white slivers. And finally, if your image goes all the way to the edge of the paper, add a 1/8 inch bleed. So if a few days go by and you get a proof back from the printer, here's a sort of general approach. Assume you will find mistakes. Don't assume it's going to be right first. So you're looking for what's wrong and what you want to correct. Tell the printer that you'd prefer to have a proof that has the same dot pattern as the final print will. Sometimes they'll try to give you something different. But if you really want to see what it's going to look like, you need to have the same dot pattern. And finally, a second proof is expensive. It can be expensive, but stopping a press is even more expensive than that. So take the time to make a second proof if you feel like that's needed. And here's a more detailed checklist of what to look at when you're looking at your proof. Obviously, look at it a lot. Look at it upside down. That, again, just like squinting and stepping back, it helps you to look at the color balance and the overall look of the thing without getting distracted by details. Look at it through a loop, a magnifier. So if colors look muddy, you can look for errant dots through the loop. Have other people look at it. Check that all your effects are acting the way you expect. And verify that all elements are there. It's much easier to overlook something that's missing than something that's wrong. Speaking of looking through a magnifier, I want to mention real quickly, the background images in these slides come from close-up pictures that I took of maps in the Atlas of Design 2 and 3. I took them just with my cell phone and this cool little stick-on macro lens. So that I put the URL up there. That's where I got it from. It's only $9. It's kind of fun. So press day finally comes. You should come prepared to wait. The press person will run the press for a while to make sure everything is flowing correctly, and this is called make ready. They may have you come after that or before it, and in any case, you may have to wait. As a general approach on press day, you really want to make a point to connect with the press person. Make sure they understand how much time you spent, how much you care about the details being right, how important the project is to you, and that you want them to do a great job and that you're confident that they can. Sometimes a customer service person gets involved and tries to keep you away from the press room, but you should get past this if you can and work with the press person directly. And this kind of connection is also important if you're working with someone earlier in the process. At this point, sort of step away from the proof and make sure that the print you're looking at matches your vision for the project. The printer will use measurements to try to match the proof exactly, but you want to keep your overall vision in mind here, and this is easier, again, if you're working directly with the press person. And finally, resist the urge to say yes too fast. The whole press is waiting on you, and it can be a lot of pressure, but this is your time. Make sure that you take the time to check it and make sure it's right. Here are some things to look for. Good overall look, that it's printed on the right paper. The sides are consistent and aligned and oriented correctly. One thing you can do is hold it up to the light and see if the trim marks are aligned on both sides. Make sure the pages are consistent with each other, that the colors are clean and sharp and the registration is tight, the color balance is good, and the fold is correct. This is not something that will automatically happen, but you can ask the press person to manually fold one. This is if your map has a fold, of course. And then once there's one that's folded that you've signed off on, then they'll make sure that the rest match that one. And then, very importantly, check this first proof in many types of light. Don't just look at it on their perfectly well-lit table there in the print shop, but take it outside, look at it in incandescent light, LED, maybe in the bathroom, something, so that you can see how it looks in real life. After a few days of finishing, your project will be complete. Pictured in here on this slide is Bruce's map of Asheville, North Carolina, which was featured in the second Atlas of Design. I brought a bunch of them with me today as examples of a map that Bruce thinks was printed well. They're out there by the registration desk, so please help yourself to one. We've got lots. He'd want me to point out there were some issues with the folding, so that's not perfect, but the printing is well done. So here's our contact information and links to the slide and the checklist. And I do have Bruce on chat here, so if there's a question that I can't answer, we can see if we can get an answer from him. So, any questions?
Thank you, Kate. That was a really fun talk and very informative, very useful. Okay, I see a hand. From Nat. Nat, I think I can't let you have any questions anymore. Just kidding.
That was really great. Just one quick comment. In addition to a press check, you can also ask for a bindery check. And that's one way to make sure the folding works, is to actually say, I want to be there when they fold it, make sure they fold it properly. And especially with a printer that is not experienced in doing map folds, complex map folds, that can be a really useful counter check to having bad stuff show up in your box.
Great, thank you. Someone said, and a folding dummy.
Thank you, that was great. Do you or Bruce or anyone have any recommendations on printers that are really good at folding that are in the United States?
Great, we'll have to wait for Bruce on that one.
Okay, well, we wait.
There's a little bit of a
Take the
delay,
mic
so
around.
you can walk around to your next person.
It's kind of like a life goal of mine to like print out a map that has like gold foiling on it. I don't know about what yet, but you guys have any experience with like that kind of embellishments? I guess like also like embossed things also probably fall in that category, but like above just like regular flat printing, I guess.
Okay, I'm passing them on to Bruce. I see he's typing. I have a little typing indicator. So he has no recommendations for folding specifically. What about gold foil? I'm not sure if he's hearing this, so he's responding now that I'm typing him the question. Let me know when we're out of time. We can also, I put up our email addresses, so you're welcome to contact us if you have further questions once we run out of time.
Okay, and I'm sorry to say that we did, in fact, run out of time.
Okay.